progress, real stories and ideas that show you what's possible in making your work and life more inclusive. The world needs proof of positive change. In this week's episode, I'm joined by Jad-Évangelo Nasser. Him, global inclusion expert, TEDx speaker, professor, cross cultural radical educator, and entertainer. This week, our conversation is about ice cream without activism, bank wages hitting $25 an hour, bath bombs for trans rights, and more. Welcome to the show. Oh, shoot.
Thank you.
Hold on a second. I just got a notification that LinkedIn stopped. Ugh. Hold on. I'm so sorry.
Hmm?
No, Mm. This now is everything is frozen. Okay, sorry about that. We're just going to continue without LinkedIn. Welcome to the show, Jad. Nice to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a real treat, and I'm really looking forward to learning a little bit more about your background. So I know you are an expert in global inclusion and cross-cultural communication. I mean, what does that look like in today's world? I mean, it's such an interconnected world. What does it look like these days to have an effective cross-cultural communication?
Absolutely. I focus a lot on the framework of global citizenship
Mm.
and what it means to be living in the world despite everything going on. How do we live in multiple environments, understanding the struggles and the strength of different communities and individuals around us, understanding our privilege and our disadvantage in correlation to other people's privileges and disadvantages around
Mm.
the world. So it's really existing in humanity, not just
Mm.
connecting superficially with other cultures or countries or individuals, but really understanding the privilege that we hold and the
Mm.
desires that we have, and how can we help uplift other people who are more vulnerable than we are,
Mm.
decentering ourselves, being students of the global world instead of being dictators, of the world, especially
Yes.
growing living in a country like the US, tending to dictate the narrative of marginalized communities. How do we allow marginalized communities to dictate their own narrative and us being students? So it
Mm.
has a lot to do with traveling within your environment, connecting with people, understanding, learning, unlearning, and really acknowledging concepts so often not spoken about, like colorism, apartheid, colonialism, gender inequalities, and queer rights, for example. Understanding all those concepts and really discussing them. So it's not just about traveling or just
Mm.
connecting with different people. It's really immersing yourself in the stories of others, and how do we become better people, and how do we decenter ourselves, and let go,
Mm-hmm.
some things that we've been comfortable with for years.
Mm. I love that. There's so much in there. So much in there. I mean, I think
Mhm.
it's very common, obviously, for Americans to be very ethnocentric, and to center ourselves as a white person. I see whiteness as the default pretty much everywhere, and I think that as one of the things that I think about as I think about cross cultural communication and how we get to this point that you're describing of cultural intelligence, it's got to be the power of stories, right? And the
Mhm.
power of empathy. So what are some
Mhm.
tips or resources that you would offer someone who's looking to beyond travel, which of course is the obvious one, but to become a more culturally intelligent person?
Mhm. Well, I would start off by sharing my TED Talk, to be honest,
Mm,
on cultural curiosity. That has gained a lot of traction, not necessarily to amplify myself, but amplify the message.
sure.
Um, I can share it in the comments if possible.
Yeah, we'll put it in the
Or,
show notes as well.
yes, so that's it's called Can Cultural Curiosity and Cultural Segregation.
Mm,
And I think it would be a really good, start, at least for people to maybe understand the framework of cultural curiosity and what they can do. In
Mm.
this talk, I discussed the idea of how do we expose ourselves and allow our minds to be exposed and not reject what is foreign. If
Mm.
we're faced with something foreign, the first thing we do is we fear it, so we get it out and we judge it and
Mhm.
criticize it. But how can we just allow it to come to us,
Right.
right? Whether it's a foreign language, a foreign food, or like, even an event that is happening around the world, like what's happening in Sudan, Congo, Haiti, and Palestine. People tend to avoid talking about this because they don't know how to respond. I hear that a lot, like, I don't know what to say, I don't know how to feel. Well, maybe just keep opening your eyes and keep looking, and
Mm.
you know it's gonna get uncomfortable, but that's just how it is. But I always tell,
Absolutely.
in correlation with viewing the struggles of a community, you can see the strength.
Mhm.
You can see how that community has power as well. So you have to look at both things, struggle and strength. That's how it is. When you are exposing yourself to other people, what are they struggling with, but what are they capable of?
Mhm.
Like, for example, yes, years of enslavement, but also the first Black Republic, utilizing Creole as a strategic language, and why Creole is an important language, to be
Mhm.
acknowledged, like strength in correlation to a struggle. And that
Mm.
can be great. We need to have a balance. When you're in a relationship, you're going to take the good and the bad of your partner. When
Mhm.
you're in a friendship, not everything is always glimmery and bubbly and everything. Like, it's important to have this 50-50 balance of strength and struggle when we're faced with somebody foreign, right? Or like with a foreign concept. So be open to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I One thing I talk about in my work is the concept of kind curiosity, right? So we can be curious about someone who's different from us, but we need to bring a spirit of kindness to our curiosity so that we're approaching them in a way that feels safe for them too, right? Right?
Mhm.
Right?
Exactly.
I think that
Yes.
there's a sense of safety that needs to be kind of created for both sides of the conversation, especially
Mhm.
in times in which people are just well, first of all, especially because we're sort of wired, as you said, biologically speaking, to be afraid of something that's different from us, and especially because we're kind of in this time of division. I think that bringing the kindness is key here as well.
Mhm.
So, one thing I wrote about in this week's Five Things newsletter is how I led a group discussion this week. I led a workshop and I invited the group to anonymously share what hashtag would you use to describe inclusion at your company right now. So heard everything from
Mhm.
hashtag dying a slow death to hashtag quiet, hashtag nope, but also hashtag doing the work and collaborative. And all of that can be true. I know right
Mhm.
now there's a lot of folks who want to give up, but there are also a lot of folks who are hungry for progress and for change. And I still think that's really, really possible. But I think that we need stories. We need stories and we need data to influence others for change. We need empathy. We need logic, hearts and minds. It all goes together. So I was wondering, how that could play into your concept of cultural intelligence.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Well,
hmm
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, no, please.
Yes. Well, I mean, there's always going to be, like, mixed reviews about what inclusion is. Like,
Hmm.
it's just, I always tell people, like, this is a basic human foundation to be
Right.
inclusive. Nothing, it's something that started even before the words DEI came to be,
Sure.
and we have to understand that we live in a world right now that is very much dictating what they want to do, very supremacist, and
Hmm.
not wanting to have inclusion. So we can't expect, I think my answer would be, we can't expect big organizations to be inclusive. We have to
Hmm.
stop trying to, let the big heads make the decisions of why they need to be included. Inclusion itself is a personal practice. It starts with you. If you want
Hmm.
to do it, you can't expect the higher ups or big companies and governments and entities to do it for you, because we live in a world that, quite frankly, just wants to profit off of, capitalism
Mhm.
and war, all of that. So
Sure.
who are you shouting at? So
Mhm.
when I hear hashtags like dying a slow death or not there, like I get it because you're expecting those big entities to save you, but they're not here to save you. We
Mhm.
have to understand something. We live in a system, and this is the system that we live in. To be inclusive is a personal practice. You do it on your own. And when it comes to cultural intelligence, it's an interpersonal thing. It's something you do
Mhm.
within your communities. It's not something that you necessarily do on a popularity platform. You don't have to go live with it. You do it within your communities. You do it within
Mhm.
the people that you meet on your travels, and you take it around with you and you spread it around, and it becomes like an infectious disease that we kind of all want. You know,
Yes.
you have to start it. You
Yes.
start that. You go around. You don't go directly to, I want to be famous or like spread it out loud to people. Like start within yourself and just go around. And to be honest, we we always try to promote to what we're doing. Sometimes you don't need to promote; just do it for you. How about that? Don't do it for the people and tell the people that you're being inclusive. Just do it for you and carry on.
Yes. And I completely agree. I love what you said. One thing I talk about is how inclusion requires intention, and that basically is it.
Mhm.
And it starts with each individual. All right, well, let's move into this week's good vibes. The first story this week comes from Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream, where co-founder Jerry Greenfield has stepped away, saying corporate leadership, Ben and Jerry's is now owned by Unilever, is muting the company's
Mm.
activist roots. So for decades as a private company, Ben and Jerry's connected ice cream with racial justice, climate action, and human rights. Lots of stories about Ben and Jerry's and five things. But now
Mhm.
Unilever has been silencing that message, and Jerry is out.
Mm.
Wild story. I love that
Yep.
he's standing up for his beliefs.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, anything you want to add there?
Oh, to that story?
Yeah, feel free to chime in if there's anything you
Oh,
want to
well,
contribute to any of these stories.
oh, absolutely. I've read about it. I've looked into it and everything. I think I will say this: the good vibe of that story is that Jerry chose his own liberation
That's right.
instead of choosing the assimilation to the oppressive world. So he did the choice that would benefit him, I think, and his family and everything. He chose himself and he chose his values.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I'm out. Other
Yes.
people stay silent and say nothing and will get that paycheck and will say, yes, Unilever, we will do exactly what you tell us to do. And all I can say is, in terms of good vibes, I mean, personally for me, you know, my values and my principles bring me the most joy in the world that a paycheck will never.
Yes.
I'll say this. I'll
I
say
hear
this.
you.
And here, if you want to add a good vibe, if you want me to add to that vibe and everything, I'll say this. When you choose your principles and values and go by what's right for you will be compensated in
I
many
love
ways
it.
that are beyond currency profits. You will get that. I mean, as a testimony, as someone who came to the U.S., been living here for 9 years, traveled the world, do the work, always stood by my principles. I never felt, captivated or stuck in the capitalism world. I feel like I'm living a very stable and very actually more than stable, life financially,
Mm-hmm.
economically, all of that, but also, community wise, friendship
Yes.
wise, health wise, principles and values, like they nurture the community, they nurture our health, they nurture our mind, because it's something that is deeply rooted within us. You know, paychecks can, yeah, I mean, they can help with health, they can help with community, but it's relying on currency to survive in this world is not going to be enough. So as a good vibe to conclude this, I will say Choose your principles that are dear to you, and you will be compensated. You will be compensated in many ways.
Love it. Love it. Couldn't agree more. All right. The second story this week comes from Bank of America, which is raising its minimum hourly wage to $25 an hour, giving full time workers more than a $50,000 annual salary. So, women and
Mhm,
BIPOC folks are going to be disproportionately impacted by this in a good way. So, this is a commitment that Bank of America made in 2021. So, they are
mhm,
following through on their commitment post the George Floyd racial justice uprising. So, it matters. This stuff matters. I'll take the win.
mhm. Yeah. No, for real. They can bump it up even more. I mean,
Yeah,
$25 more in this economy is still not enough.
right.
And big banks need to, do a little bit more. They need to do a little bit more with that, and maybe increase benefits and PTOs and all of that. So it's not just about the hourly, pay, of minimum wage. It's also about, like, the 4 hour work week,
Mhm.
the 10 to 3 instead of the 9 to 5, all of that. I mean, it's easy. I hear is good news, but is it being in practice? That's what I need to know.
Mhm. Oh
So they
yeah.
say they do it. Are they actually doing it? And once they do it, is it in practice? People are liking it. That's when we get. That's when it's a good win. It's a win when
Absolutely.
it's an action. It's not a win when it's a statement.
That's true. Well, at least they followed through from 2021, so we know that
Hmm.
they've implemented it. All right, the third
Hmm.
story this week comes from Thailand, where the Senate voted to